Hi, this is Michael Smith, one of the founders of JourneyGuide. This is a video that's going to show the retirement planning tool that we have, but a full video or full demo of that tool. There are shorter videos that go into specific features of the tool, but this is actually going to give you a broad overview of the entire tool. So just a couple of things before we start that I'd like to point out, things that we hear from advisors that they like about JourneyGuide and makes us different. Number one, it's easy to use, easy to understand from a UI perspective, simple to put information in. You can get a plan out and very quickly with results that you understand, both you and the client can understand. The second is that don't let that simplicity actually fool you, because behind the scenes, we actually are doing a tremendous amount of calculations. And in fact, we would hold those kind of art analysis up to anybody. The third is if you actually believe that a guaranteed income stream can help somebody in retirement, this is actually the best tool that's out there that can demonstrate just the power of what guaranteed income streams can do for those in retirement. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So what we'll do is show you kind of what the full process looks like when you're building out a case. When you first log in, this is the page that you would see. Let's go ahead and add in a new client. And so as I'm doing this, you'll see that it's pretty quickly to add the information. The first page that we actually call About You. So this is just getting demographic information about the client. And as I'm entering it, you'll see that we're updating some relevant information, put in the date of birth, and we indicate what the age is. Are they retired or not? So we'll say that they're currently employed, planning to retire when they're 63. And Joe is married. His wife, his name is Mary, and her date of birth is January 16th, 1968, just a little bit younger than Joe. She also is employed and planning to retire at the same time here in a couple of years. Now, you'll see that we have a drop down for the state, and this is important because we actually calculate both federal and state taxes. So you'll want to make sure that you're including what the state is in which they reside, and then also what their retirement spending goal is. Now, this number is something that we actually calculate in a little bit that you'll see, but it's important to have this right on the very first page. This is their goal. This is how much after taxes in today's dollars that they would like to be able to spend. You can think of it really as, what is their lifestyle that they're hoping to have in retirement. There's all kinds of additional assumptions that you can go in and change. I'll just point out a couple of them. You can update the inflation. So you can use our defaults for these, but feel free to change them, even per client. And life expectancy. So how long will this plan be calculated for? So by default, we do one standard deviation above average health. You can certainly change that and say, now I want to go to exactly 95 years old for both of them. That's completely up to you and your client. So let me go ahead and cancel. We're going to use 91 and 94, and I'll click next. So the second page of entry called investments and savings. So as you can see, we actually have several different account sections that we include here. So it's his and her qualified, and I'm just going to fill out his qualified information. And you can see that we're going to select a particular asset mix. So we model 18 different asset classes and sub-asset classes behind the scenes in our Monte Carlo simulations. And then how much are they saving each year before retirement in that particular account? And let's say that she also has a qualified account, 125,000 in that, and she is an aggressive growth allocation, and she's saving 5,000 a year. Then she also has a little bit in a Roth account, 50,000 in a Roth account, and that has a 70-30 or growth allocation, and she's saving just $1,000 in that. They also have a joint non-qualified account, and we'll say there's 25,000 in that, and it is allocated just 60/40. So this is the simple view, again, broken out by kind of aggregated his and her qualified, his and her Roth, and non-qualified. You can go into a detailed entry where you can put in as many individual accounts as you want to. So let's say they had 17 different accounts. You could put each one of them in here, just indicating kind of what the account type is, so that we know how to do the tax calculations, and some additional information there. You can also include existing annuities. So you would just populate this by indicating what the type is, give some information about the crediting strategies, and you can build that out as well. So once you have, let's go back to the simple, once you have their investment information, the retirement asset mix is something that it could be different than the asset mix during, before retirement. So you'll want to make sure that you indicate that. And then any advisory or product fees. Now, the product fee is how much, fees that might be on, say, oh, if they're using low fee ETFs, or possibly mutual funds. So we'll just put 20 basis points in for that. And then the final thing on investments and savings, you can update the withdrawal sequence of those accounts. So by default, we do the most tax efficient, meaning pulling from non-qualified, then qualified, then finally Roth. But let's say, for example, that in this case, we actually wanted to take from the non-qualified account last. Let's say we want to keep that as kind of like a rainy day fund. We'll move that to the last. So click on update. And then the next, so the third and final page of entry, and you'll notice we're saving this as we go along. The third and final page of entry is income and expenses. We have a Social Security calculator built in. And so this is actually where, if you have a statement from the client, you can enter that here. So let's say that we have a statement for Mary, and what you'll do is you'll put in for the amount, we'll make this monthly, and you'll want to put in the PIA amount at full retirement age. And so then you'll see a drop down of when the client wants to start taking Social Security. Now, I say it that way because we actually, on these 3 pages, about you, investment, savings, and income and expenses, we're indicating where the client is right now before you as the advisor have given any of your recommendations. So in this situation, Mary says, you know what, I'm tired of giving my money to the government. I want to take it as soon as I can. Even though you as the advisor may know that deferring a little bit might actually be better for her, that's okay. We want to go ahead and put 62 when she thinks she wants to start taking it, and then we'll optimize this on a later page. For Joe, we don't have a statement, but we know that he made $135,000 last year. And so we calculate the PIA amount. And let's say he's going to take that when they retire. So at 62 and 63. The last thing related to Social Security is this checkbox right here. So every year, the Board of Trustees puts out a report that indicates how long the trust fund is going to last. A lot of people think, oh, there's not going to be anything for me. Social Security will be gone by the time I retire. That's not actually true. There will be something. In fact, the trustees, the last trustees report said that starting in the year 2033, they'll actually pay out 77% of benefits. So we include this reduction by default. You can uncheck that. Then that way you can just have it go up with inflation. So that's if you think Congress is going to act. A lot of people like to be a bit more conservative and include that reduction. The last and final piece of this page is called income and expenses. So this is where you can really start to make it look like the client and include any specific income streams or maybe large expenses. So one thing I'll point out right here, JourneyGuide is not actually a budgeting tool. we're not going to put in expenses like, oh, their cell phone bill or their cable bill, those types of things. We'll put in large one-time expenses if you want to have those covered beyond just their lifestyle spending. So we'll just put in an income stream. We know that this person, Joe, actually worked at Ford. You can see a bunch of the different categories here. You know, there's long-term care. You can actually model long-term care here as well. Let's say he was selling a business, or maybe they have a rental property. In this case, we're going to include the pension that Joe has. So Joe worked at Ford, and we're going to indicate the strategy. This is actually an income supplement. If it was something, say an inheritance, then that might be an infusion into one of their accounts. So we'll just put income supplement, and we'll say this is monthly, $1,200 a month, and it is a future value, meaning that is the actual dollar amount that they'll be expecting in the future. There's a survivorship component here. Let's say that they'll pay out 50% of that when Joe passes away. And the start age, let's say that they're going to start it when he is 70, and it's going to continue on until the second death, meaning when the second person passes away. Now, we know how pension is taxed, so we've defaulted this to a before tax number, and then we'll handle the taxes. But for a growth rate, meaning once it starts, we're just going to put 0. So it's just going to be a level $1,200 a month, going all the way out until he passes away, and then it drops to $600 a month for her. So if we go ahead and click add, now you can see that stream. And then that is it in terms of entry. So again, we've entered 3 pages of information. It's taken us, we're about the 12-minute mark. So it's been able to enter that pretty quickly for the client. And when I click on where do I stand, this is actually the first page of results. So we call it where do I stand because, like I said, up until this point, we've just captured the information kind of about the client as they are today before you give any of your recommendations. And so we need to like level set. We need to make sure that we have a baseline that we're working with. So behind the scenes, what we ran there in less than a second, we ran 5,000 Monte Carlo simulations. So that is considerably more than a lot of tools will run. There's a specific mathematical reason why we choose 5,000 simulations. You can watch a video to go into the details of that. But essentially what we're doing here is we're calculating taxes every single year for each one of those sequences where there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But that's actually the beauty of our software is that we're able to do it so quickly. Now, with any tool that does some kind of Monte Carlo, you'll see this type of results that, okay, you have an X% chance of meeting your goal. Well, in this case, they have a 69% chance of meeting their goal of spending $90,000 in retirement. Now, if they actually do spend $90,000, they're going to run out of money at age 79 and 78. But the problem with giving them a percentage as a result, people have a hard time kind of understanding percentages. It's all relative. So meaning is 69% passing? Is it failing? I guess it depends on where you went to school. If you got on a plane and you had a 67% chance or 69% chance of making it to your destination, is that a good thing? So it really depends on the context, which makes percentages hard to understand. So what we decided to do is actually turn this problem on its head. And this is something that is very unique to JourneyGuide. Nobody else gives this kind of a calculation. But we said, okay, the client told us that they want to have a high degree of confidence of not running out of money before they run out of breath. So how much can they spend after taxes in today's dollars? Well, that's the calculation that we actually do that's unique. So we have kind of backed into this number, and it turns out they can safely spend $75,400. Now, granted, it's not quite their goal, but you would be amazed at the response that your clients will get just from getting that number, because now they know. I've been in many client meetings where there's just you can visibly see that sigh of relief, knowing, okay, this is their safe spending number. Of course, it's not what they wanted to be able to spend, but at least now they know. So next we're actually going to see if we can improve that. But before we do that, I want to go into a couple more details here. So I've expanded this graph. You can see graphically kind of where the money is coming from in retirement for them. These light gray is Social Security, and we have the pension. This yellow line represents RMDs. We're pulling from their qualified and then the Roth, and then we left that non-qualified till the end. And the red line represents that spending curve. So this is after taxes, how much they're spending each year. So in that first year of retirement, because we've gone up with inflation, it's now $81,800. And it continues to go up with inflation until they get to about the age 75. And this is based on a lot of research that we've done with several different universities, that people tend to spend gradually less between the ages of 75 and 85. Now, they don't wake up all of a sudden on their 75th birthday and spend like 30% less. It's a gradual taper. And so that's what we've modeled here. Until we get to 85, then it kicks back up again because of inflation and healthcare costs. And then he'll pass away, and there's a reduction then in spending. But all of that is actually configurable. You can turn off that reduction, turn off the taper. Like I said, you obviously want to do it based on the conversation with your client. The gray line up at the top is including taxes. So let's go ahead and close that, go into the detailed cash flow. So this is especially for those clients that you have that might be engineers. You can actually see for each year, for each one of the accounts, where the money is coming from. So I'll go back to the summary. So on the left-hand side, this is the living expense. This was that red line that we saw, including the taper. And then you have protected income. So this would include the pension, any annuities that they might have, as well as Social Security. Then you'll notice that this column, the federal tax column, is actually a link. If I click on that link and I pull this up, and let me go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit. Behind the scenes, again, for each one of our 5,000 Monte Carlo simulations, we're maintaining basis. We're calculating capital gains, right, with loss carryover. We know short-term versus long-term. We know how Social Security is taxed, the 85% versus 50% rules. We know how pension and, it's ordinary income, how annuities are taxed with an exclusion ratio on immediate annuities. All of that to the point where we can actually populate a 1040. Now, obviously, this is not something that you would be able to file because this is out in the year 2042. But it really serves as an example of just the level of detail of our calculations that we're going through behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and close this. So it's at this point, obviously the client is not able to meet their goal. They are about $14,500 short. Unfortunately, it's at this point the client is often told, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, you're not going to be able to meet your goal. You're going to have to save another $600,000 or maybe work another 4 years in order to meet that spending goal. Well, those are actually sacrifices. We have a phrase that we like to use. We want to focus on solutions, not sacrifices. So that's what leads us to the next page. And this is actually where we think a lot of the fun starts to happen, is this explore options page. because it's here where you as the advisor are actually going to start to kind of earn your keep. You're going to be able to show the value that you're bringing to the relationship with them. So what we're going to do is we're going to make changes on the left-hand side, and we're going to see those changes reflected on the right-hand side. Now, you'll notice this blue bar, the numbers here, this is their current plan, right? Without any changes, that's how much they can safely spend in retirement, kind of with a 95% success rate. So as we make changes to the left-hand side, we're going to see this green bar move up or down. So it's like we're gamifying kind of this process. So if we move when she starts taking Social Security by 1 year, what we just did there in less than a second is we reran all of our Monte Carlo simulations, including taxes, inflation, all of those things to come up with a new safe spending number, taking into account that she actually is taking Social Security 1 year later. The new number is now $75,700. So it's a few $100 better, right? So that was an improvement. Not a big improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. Now I'm going to go ahead and move that back, and you'll notice that when I move it back, there's still a number here. So if you click on this, then that will take you back to whatever gave you the highest result thus far. So let me go ahead and move it back to 62. And now let's add an annuity. So this is what we call our annuity wizard. You can see that there's a couple of different buttons here. Find a product. We model lots of different annuity products from lots of different carriers. And what we do is we actually work with each one of those carriers in order to model their products directly within our tool. So it's, we're running our Monte Carlo simulations actually through those products. So it's much more detailed than just simply just getting a rate. We actually are doing the modeling itself, almost like an illustration system built right in. So, and by the way, I'll mention this right now, that if you don't see a product here, you can click on build an annuity, and where you can actually build out, the product yourself if you wanted to. We'll have, again, there are videos on that specifically. So let's go back to the find a product, and we'll just use Allianz. It's up near the top here, Core Income 7. Now you notice that Core Income 7 has 2 riders. It has a level payout and a rising income option. And if I scroll down, you can see that there's some results down here at the bottom. So with every change that we're making, everything that we select, we're actually rerunning all of our 5,000 simulations through those strategies and through those product riders in order to determine what is the payout. So you'll notice that we're showing the first year guaranteed amount. So assuming 0 returns, the first year average, so that's of our 5,000 simulations, how much would you expect in the first year? And then the average income over the life of the plan. Now that's present valued, but gives you a sense of whether there's an increase potentially. So for example, we have, a couple of items here, an option 1 and option 2. You can see with the option 1s, their level payout. So all of those numbers, the first year average and the average income, are the same. Whereas with a rising income, you have the potential of it actually going up. So I'm going to go ahead and select option 2 because I like the rising income. And I'm going to expand this additional criteria. So here you can change whether it's just on a single life or on a joint. You can change the state if you wanted to. You can also change the purchase amount. So by default, we do 20% of their overall portfolio into the purchase. I'm actually going to put 225,000, just slightly more than 20%. And you can see the source of funds. So you can, by default, we take from the largest account. We'll leave it at that. And then the payout age, you can also change when we would expect to have the payout. So I'm actually going to start this in the year 2033 here in a few years. And you can see that we updated our calculations to reflect those new payout amounts. And you can select as many strategies as you want and put different allocations to them. So I'm just going to do 100% into the S&P, but you certainly could do 75% into one, 25. You can mix and match. So let me go ahead and click Add Annuity. Now, what we've done there is we've included that guaranteed income stream. We have not introduced new money, but we reran our Monte Carlo simulations to see, okay, did that improve their situation? It absolutely did. So just by reallocating a bit of their assets into that guaranteed income stream, we've essentially increased how much they can safely spend in retirement by over 9%. So we're up to over $82,000 now in retirement. So let me scroll down and you can see this new sources of income graph now includes the green bars of the annuity. And let me zoom in on this graph. I think this is actually the most powerful graph that we have. We call it the income frontier graph. Now, a little bit of background. I'm not from the kind of insurance annuity world. I worked at Goldman Sachs for 17 years. I built portfolio systems, asset allocation optimization techniques, and was challenged to look at, okay, does an annuity actually make sense in a retirement plan? So I was a skeptic. I did not think that annuities or guaranteed income streams could outperform a well balanced, optimized portfolio. But I needed some way of actually proving it to myself, either proving or disproving. So this is what I came up with. So what you're looking at here is the x-axis is not time. This is actually all of those Monte Carlo simulations. And they're ordered based on whether it was a poor sequence of returns or a great sequence of returns. Now it's colored green to red because we want the focus to be down here at the left. We don't want people to assume that they're going to have amazing returns. So what we're plotting on the blue line that represents their current plan without the annuity, we're plotting how much they can spend at each one of those successes or sequences of returns. So I'm hovering over the 95th percentile. That's what we had solved for originally. And you can see there's that 75,400 number. If I go clear over here to the right, theoretically, the client could start spending $139,700, but they would only have a 3% likelihood of sustaining that level of spending all the way through retirement. Now, if you hover over the 50th percentile, it's 97,000. That is a coin flip. Half the time they're going to make it, half the time they're going to run out of money. So obviously, we want the focus to be down here with the safe spending. You want to start out spending in retirement at a safe number. Now, when I started looking at this, I said, you know what? I get it. You include an annuity, that guaranteed income stream. You're taking money out of the market, putting it into that product. Of course, in poor markets, you're going to be better off, right? Because you're taking money out of the market, putting it into guaranteed income. Of course, it's going to look better. So what I was trying to figure out, though, is like a cost benefit analysis. Where is the crossover? How well do markets actually have to perform in order for this not to have been a better decision for the client? So when I first looked at it, I thought, okay, well, maybe the crossover would be like at the 70th or 75th percentile. And for immediate annuities, sometimes that's the case. And for immediate and fixed annuities, that's sometimes the case. But look what it is here. If I include the plan that has that annuity, you can see clearly the green line is above the blue line in these poor market sequences. But look at the crossover. The crossover is clear over here at the 24th percentile. That means that markets would have to perform the 23rd percentile or better for this not to have been a better decision for the client. So this is all about best interest. It's doing what's right for the client and getting a grasp of, okay, is the client better off? And in what market conditions basically how does the market have to perform in order to make up that difference. So let's go ahead and close this. And let's look at a technique that people often will consider in thinking about the annuity as possibly a fixed income or bond replacement. So essentially what we've done by including this annuity is we de-risked the portfolio, right? And so they're no longer actually a 60-40 risk profile. They're actually even a bit more conservative than that. So in order to adjust that back to a risk profile that matches kind of what the client actually is, we actually need to be a bit more aggressive with their remaining assets. So essentially what we're doing here is we're funding that annuity purchase from their bond portfolio. So you can see that by doing that, I've taken a slight hit at the 95th percentile, right? Which kind of makes sense because we're a bit more aggressive now. So in poor markets, there's a slight hit, but not by much, just a few $100s. Well, look what it did to the income frontier graph. Now the crossover is clear over at the 9th percentile, meaning it's almost in just about every market that we're modeling, the client is better off. And in fact, if the markets are doing this well, it's not going to matter, right? Because they're going to be just fine. So it really is a way of showing best interest. Now, one last thing that we can do here is we can optimize Social Security. So that just is as easy as moving the slider. So you can see that if we defer Social Security, it keeps going up. So we're going to defer for her 66, 67. Oh, once I start going a little bit further, you can see, 68. Okay, so it looks like if I go back, 68 is optimal for her. So it's not actually going all the way out to 70 because of the purchase of the annuity, because of the pension. So you want to be very careful that you're not optimizing just each one of these on their own. In other words, if you're trying to optimize when somebody takes Social Security just in isolation, just by looking at the Social Security numbers, you're not doing the client justice. You have to take it in consideration of everything that's going on in the plan. And that, I think, is a key mistake that people make when they're trying to optimize Social Security. So now that we have a plan set, and you can do all kinds of things with this, all we've done is just added an annuity, adjusted their asset mix, kind of then changed and optimized Social Security. But you could do additional things like, you could add additional income and expenses. You can maybe model what it would look like if they had a long-term care expense and a benefit. You could see what would it look like if they actually retired a little bit earlier. So there are lots of different scenarios and things that you can do with this. But I'm going to go ahead and save this particular scenario. And I'm going to call this annuity and Social Security optimal. And I'm going to go ahead and generate a report. So we have a report builder built in. Again, all of this is included in your subscription. You can pick and choose what slides to include. You can customize this where it would be your colors, your logo. It'd be white labeled essentially for you, your contact information. Again, pick and choose which slides. Let's say you didn't want to include, one particular slide. You can certainly adjust that. Let me go ahead and download the report. And again, it's a PDF that you can send to your client. I would say that once you get comfortable with the tool, a lot of advisors will use the tool directly with a client. In fact, we have trademarked the phrase co-planning because that's how we built the tool, is actually with that intention of actually building a plan together with the client. But if you're not comfortable with that yet, certainly you can just simply go over the PDF in the report. So that is it for building out a plan. So I'm going to go back to the planning tool, the main page, and we have two additional things that I want to share with or show you. One is our retirement readiness calculator. So that is something that you would actually have here. So let me go ahead and copy this link, and it's specific to your particular um, your login. So every subscription gets this included. So let me go ahead and include that URL here and go to the calculator, to the video. So once you click on the video, and you can see that, it talks about getting together with you, seeing what it might look like. There's some screenshots of JourneyGuide, of the planning tool, and what they would expect when they actually meet with you. Also, here is what we call a link to our retirement readiness calculator. So if you click on that, you can actually fill out a calculator. Now, I'm not going to spend the time to do this now, but what happened, you can watch our videos on it. But essentially what happens is that somebody fills out this information. There's one more screen of information where they say, okay, well, do they have a retirement account? Do they have a savings account? And then they get an answer that looks a lot like what they have in the planning tool, but without the details and kind of what you would be able to help them with. We want to drive everybody to you to be able to come and build a plan with you. So by filling that out, that information actually would populate in this Your Opportunities section. And then you can build out a plan for them by simply moving it up to the case list, and everything is pre-filled, and then you can meet with them and away you go. So that is the retirement readiness calculator, also included with your subscription. The last thing that I'll mention is a new set of tools that we call Annuity Insights. It's a way to show the power of an annuity and do an evaluation, maybe on an existing annuity. You just simply upload a statement. You can see, okay, what would it look like if we moved this particular existing annuity? Maybe they have an old VA. And what would it look like if they, converted that into maybe a more up-to-date FIA with an income rider? Or you can do an accumulation analysis, or maybe even a new purchase. So we have lots of details on that. We'd love to show you, but that is a different tool set that we've just recently launched. So that is it for JourneyGuide planning. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We can be found at support@JourneyGuidePlanning.com. Be happy to set up a live demo and walk you through the tool. But hopefully this was helpful and gave you an idea of what the tool looks like. Thank you.